The stability of Max Verstappen's long-standing alliance with Red Bull Racing is starting to look more fragile than ever, with whispers growing louder inside the paddock that the four-time world champion could very well trigger an exit clause in his contract if he finds himself outside the top three in the drivers' standings by the summer break. Although both Max and the team have gone on record denying any such intentions, the sheer delicacy of the situation begs for a deeper dive into what could be one of the most seismic shifts in the sport before the dawn of a brand-new regulatory era. Behind closed doors, it seems George Russell and Christian Horner have been engaging in strategic dialogues, not necessarily to discuss transfers, but rather to gauge the temperature of the current F1 environment. These quiet conversations suggest that even the power brokers of the grid sense that change is in the air. Could we be on the brink of witnessing a game-altering realignment of forces in Formula One sooner than anyone anticipated? Right now, one of the hottest, most volatile topics in the sport revolves around the complex, increasingly fragile relationship between Max Verstappen and Red Bull. The RB21, a machine that was initially touted as an unstoppable force, has proven to be temperamental and highly difficult to master. Verstappen, being the high-performance perfectionist that he is, knows better than anyone that if this instability bleeds into the next era of F1, his championship ambitions could be irreparably compromised. And if that's the case, the prospect of seeking refuge in a team that offers greater long-term competitiveness becomes not only plausible, but almost inevitable. Let's be real, both Max and Horner were quick to shut down the rumors that bubbled up around the Jeddah Grand Prix. But no one truly expects them to publicly air the inner turbulence rocking the team. These matters are too politically charged, too entangled in brand image and shareholder optics. It's naive to think the denials equate to a lack of fire beneath all this smoke. Toto Wolff, the sharp-eyed architect of Mercedes' dynasty, has long admired Verstappen's ruthless precision on track. Despite his vocal support for the current duo of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, or perhaps whoever replaces Lewis in 2026, Wolff hasn't hidden his interest in Max. He's been subtly laying groundwork for years, flirting with the idea, keeping the door ajar just in case. And let's not pretend there isn't a powerful case for Wolff to make. Starting in 2026, Formula One will be governed by radically new power unit regulations. Mercedes, along with Ferrari, appears to be in pole position when it comes to adapting early and efficiently to this incoming tech shift. Red Bull, on the other hand, has been spearheading efforts to delay the implementation of the new cycle, a move that might signal internal concerns about their own readiness. And if Max senses that Red Bull isn't preparing aggressively enough for the future, why would he tether his career to a potentially sinking ship? Christian Horner, of course, has been swift in dismissing any speculation about Verstappen's departure. At a recent press conference, he went so far as to say, "There's been a lot of noise both inside and outside the team." But Max reiterated his commitment again yesterday. "We're focusing on improving the car's performance. That's where our energy lies, and Max is at the center of that mission. He's a fully engaged member of this team. Everything else is just gossip and rumor." But that's only half the story. Sure, Verstappen is loyal. No one disputes his devotion to Red Bull and everything they've built together. But loyalty has its limits, especially when it feels unreciprocated or underappreciated. If the car development continues to stall, if the infrastructure around him seems more preoccupied with damage control than future-proofing the team's competitiveness, then one must ask, is Max's commitment being rewarded appropriately? In truth, Red Bull's very future could hinge on him. He's not just their star driver. He's the foundation holding the team in contention. Without Verstappen's relentless consistency and raw speed, Red Bull could easily find themselves tumbling back into midfield mediocrity. That's why Toto Wolff remains such a crucial character in this unfolding saga. He might claim his focus is entirely on Russell and Hamilton, but he's also a strategist to his core. If Verstappen becomes available, legally, emotionally, and politically, Wolff knows he can't afford to sit back. Max isn't just another driver. He's a generational talent. If he can dominate with the fourth fastest car and clinch championships with machinery that's barely the third best, Then imagine the devastation he could unleash with a car built perfectly for him under new regulations. It wouldn't even take a huge margin. Mercedes, or Ferrari, or even Aston Martin wouldn't need to obliterate Red Bull's performance. They just need a chassis and power unit that offer a slightly broader operational window. Just a bit more consistency. A touch more predictability. That's all Max would need to leapfrog the field. When asked recently about Mercedes' long-term driver lineup, Wolff gave a carefully measured response. "We haven't had any serious conversations with George at this stage. It's between George and Kimi for now." That might sound innocent on the surface, but it leaves just enough ambiguity to suggest something larger could be brewing behind the scenes. In the coming months, the F1 world will hold its breath. Will Verstappen pull the trigger and send shockwaves through the paddock? Will Red Bull manage to hold their golden boy, or will Mercedes, waiting in the shadows, finally seize the opportunity they've been craving for years? One thing is clear: the story isn't over. In fact, it might just be getting started. There's absolutely no urgency or pressure to tamper with the current setup for the future, at least, not for now. Any meaningful discussions about what lies ahead will naturally resume once the European leg of the calendar kicks off. As things stand, there's a sense of calm within the Mercedes camp. George Russell is delivering precisely the level of performance the team had anticipated. He's meeting expectations with remarkable consistency. There's genuinely no reason to question his output, and no justification to stir things up unnecessarily. However, while everything may seem steady on the surface, the summer break looms large as a crucial turning point. And that's exactly when the name Max Verstappen will once again explode into the media spotlight. Helmut Marko, the ever-blunt Austrian veteran within the Red Bull structure, has already hinted at what's coming. According to him, if Red Bull fails to provide Verstappen with a competitive car by the mid-season mark, then we're likely to witness a flurry of uncomfortable conversations about Max's future. And those discussions, more often than not, will lean toward the pessimistic side of things. Why? Because there's a clause, a ticking time bomb, embedded in Verstappen's contract. It grants him the legal option to walk away if he drops below third in the Drivers' Championship. That's not just a footnote, it's a real possibility that Red Bull cannot confidently rule out. Their current form is inconsistent, fluctuating wildly from race to race, from session to session. The reality is stark. Red Bull must now begin preparing for a future without Max Verstappen. Whether they like it or not, a post-Verstappen era is a potential scenario they must grapple with, perhaps much sooner than they had ever anticipated. And in this context, Christian Horner's behavior must be viewed through a more pragmatic lens. His recent conversations with Russell shouldn't be interpreted as disloyalty or an act of desperation. They are, in fact, the rational steps of a team principal doing his job, planning for contingencies, bracing for impact, and ensuring the team remains competitive in a world that may not include its golden boy. Let's not forget, Formula One isn't a fairy tale. It's a brutal business. The narrative of Red Bull being a one-man show, a team propped up by the sheer brilliance of Verstappen, has to be challenged. Ironically, it's that very narrative that keeps Red Bull relevant in the first place. But clinging to that storyline indefinitely is not sustainable. If Red Bull is to maintain its status among the elite, it needs to start envisioning a broader structure, one that doesn't collapse the moment Max decides to leave. As we look to the horizon, the figures who may step into pivotal roles become increasingly significant. One such figure, watching this drama unfold with caution, is Sky Sports analyst and former F1 driver Martin Brundle. He's already voiced his unease about Russell's position at Mercedes should Verstappen suddenly become a free agent. Brundle put it plainly, "If Max Verstappen were to become available, I'd be pretty worried for George, to be honest. Kimi Antonelli is clearly their long-term investment, so there are a lot of moving parts. George is doing an excellent job leading the team right now, but Toto missed out on Max once. I don't think he'd let that happen a second time if he gets the chance." And it's not just Mercedes lurking in the shadows. Aston Martin is no longer the underdog everyone used to laugh off. They've quietly built one of the most advanced wind tunnels in the sport, one that's set to stun the paddock with its capabilities. And perhaps more tellingly, they've recently secured the full-time services of Adrian Newey for their 2026 project. This isn't just an upgrade, this is an arms race. Let's also not overlook Honda. The Japanese powerhouse remains a wild card with serious influence, and they haven't forgotten who helped bring them back to the top: Verstappen. Honda's admiration for Max remains sky-high. And now, with their return to the grid in 2026 as a full works engine supplier, their sway over driver lineups is stronger than ever. President Koji Watanabe has already made it clear: if they're back, they want a say in who drives their car, just as they did during their partnership with Red Bull. Watanabe went even further, warning that the number of available seats in competitive teams will shrink significantly. That's another layer of pressure for drivers, and a reminder that Verstappen's value, leverage, and strategic importance are at an all-time high. The clock is ticking. The power dynamics are shifting. And the F1 chessboard is being reset before our very eyes. Every move matters. Every conversation counts. And the landscape that emerges post-2026 may look drastically different from the one we know today. Whether Max Verstappen chooses to remain Red Bull's pillar or to become the catalyst for a new empire elsewhere will define the sport's next chapter. That being said, from Honda's perspective, our stance remains unchanged. We fully intend to voice our opinions when it comes to shaping the driver lineup for 2026 and beyond. Of course, the final decision ultimately lies with the team itself, but as we've seen during our collaboration with Red Bull, our input carries substantial weight. It's not just a token consultation, it's a strategic dialogue. We'll be part of the conversation, influencing the trajectory of the lineup just as we did before. Surprisingly, even Fernando Alonso has expressed openness, if not outright enthusiasm, at the idea of Verstappen joining Aston Martin. And honestly, it's not as far-fetched as some might think. Behind closed doors, the Silverstone-based outfit is reportedly prepared to put a staggering $300 million on the table for Max's services across 3 seasons. That's not just a number, it's a statement of intent. It's an offer designed to sway even the most dominant driver on the grid. It's the kind of financial incentive that doesn't just turn heads, it alters destinies. Sure, pairing Verstappen with Lance Stroll would be awkward, borderline humiliating, even. The performance gap would likely be so vast that comparisons would become painful. But here's the thing: Aston Martin doesn't care. Not even a little. Their eyes are fixed firmly on one objective: winning the World Drivers' Championship. No sentimental loyalty, no political maneuvering. Just pure ambition. That's why Adrian Newey hasn't been tasked with improving the 2025 car, because everything is being funneled into the 2026 project. All the resources, all the brainpower, all the vision, it's all going toward building the car that will conquer the next generation of Formula One. And then there are Alonso's remarks, sharp, unfiltered, and telling. When asked about the Verstappen rumors, he didn't shy away. "I think it'd be amazing for the team," he said. "When a world champion is rumored to be joining your ranks, when people even consider you as a possible destination, it says everything about the scale of the project you're part of. It means the team is doing something right. Look at who they're being linked with: Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari. That's the level." In other words, if Max is even entertaining conversations with Aston Martin, it's proof that the team has leveled up its ambitions and its credibility in the paddock. The mere association speaks volumes. But this saga is far from over. The pressure is building on Red Bull, and they know it. The ball is in their court, and the stakes have never been higher. If Red Bull fails to retain Verstappen, it won't just be a loss. It'll be an era-ending blow. It would signify the end of a dominance shaped around one man's extraordinary talent, and it would hand the keys to their greatest rivals. Meanwhile, the countdown to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix is more than just another date on the calendar. It's a measuring stick. If Red Bull's upgrades in Imola fail to close the gap to McLaren, the cracks will widen. Verstappen may be the best driver on the grid, but even he has limits. He can't carry the team forever. And in a season where it's him versus the McLaren juggernaut, not a scattered points war like in 2024, the margin for error is razor thin. One mistake, one retirement, one failed strategy, and suddenly the championship is out of reach. That possibility may force Verstappen to reassess his entire strategy. He might no longer be willing to fight a one-man war. Not with the 2026 regulations on the horizon, promising a clean slate for all contenders. So, let's ask the real question. If Verstappen decides to walk away from Red Bull, is George Russell the man to replace him? More provocatively, could we be on the verge of witnessing an unprecedented seat swap between two of the most talented drivers of their generation? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to click on the video currently appearing on your screen. We're diving even deeper into the future of Formula One and the power struggle that could redefine the grid as we know it.